Russell Rowland, and this is The Song of Roland, a podcast about American culture. Today I'm going to interview a woman named Ann Millbrooke. Ann Millbrooke is a retired history professor from Montana State University. She's 73 years old when the Doge organization decided to do away with so much of the Forest Service employees. Ann Millbrooke walked into a Forest Service office and volunteered to be a fire watch, which she did for the past summer. I'm going to tell her story in a minute, but first, I want to read from a banned book. So I'm going to read a section from Lord of the Flies. And as most of you know, the story is about a group of boys who are stranded on an island and develop their own society and face a lot of the challenges and conflict that come up in normal societies. This section happens to be one that talks about fire, and you'll find out why soon. This is a council meeting that Ralph has called. Ralph has been voted the chief, and this is Ralph speaking. The fire is the most important thing on the island. How can we ever be rescued except by luck if we don't keep a fire going? Is a fire too much for us to make? He flung out his arm. Look at us. How many are we? And yet we can't keep a fire going to make smoke. Don't you understand? Can't you see we ought to die before we let the fire out? There was a self-conscious giggling among the hunters. Ralph turned on them passionately. You hunters, you can laugh, but I tell you, smoke is more important than the pig, however often you kill one. Do all of you see? He spread his arms wide and turned to the whole triangle. We've got to make smoke up there or die. He paused, feeling for his next point. And another thing. Someone called out, too many things. There came mutters of agreement. Ralph overrode them. And another thing. We nearly set the whole island on fire, and we wasted time rolling rocks and making little cooking fires. Now I say this and make it a rule because I'm chief. We won't have a fire anywhere but on the mountain, ever. There was a row immediately. Boys stood up and shouted, and Ralph shouted back. Because if you want a fire to cook fish or crab, you can jolly well go up the mountain. That way we'll be certain. Hands were reaching for the conch in the light of the setting sun. He held on and leapt on the trunk. All this I meant to say. Now I've said it. You voted me for chief. Now you do what I say. They quietened slowly and at last proceeded again. Ralph dropped down and spoke in his ordinary voice. So remember, the rock are for the lavatory. Keep the fire going and smoke showing a signal. Don't take fire from the mountain. Take your food up there. Jack stood up, scowling in the gloom, and held out his hands. I haven't finished yet, Ralph said. But you've talked and talked. I've got the conch. Jack sat down, grumbling. Then the last thing. This is what people can talk about. He waited until the platform was very still. Things are breaking up. I don't understand why. We began well. We were happy. And then he moved the conch gently, looking beyond them at nothing, remembering the beastie, the snake, the fire, the talk of fear. Then people started getting frightened. A murmur, almost a moan, rose and passed away. Jack had stopped whittling. Ralph went on abruptly. But that's Littleton's talk. We'll get that straight. So the last part, the bit we can talk about, is kind of deciding on the fear. The hair was creeping into his eyes again. We've got to talk about this fear and decide there's nothing in it. I'm frightened myself sometimes. Only that's nonsense, like bogeys. Then, when we've decided, we can start again and be careful about things like the fire. A picture of three boys walking along the bright beach flitted through his mind. And be happy. Ceremoniously, Ralph laid the conch on the trunk beside him as a sign that the speech was over. First of all, did you grow up in Montana?
No, I grew up, I was born in Oregon, grew up on the coast of Washington, went east to college to Idaho. And but I've lived in Montana. I first moved here in the 90s. Then I went up and taught in Alaska a few years and came back.
Oh, so you were a teacher?
Yes, history professor.
Oh, okay. So you taught in colleges?
Yes,
And did you teach?
MSU, Bozeman, and at Northern, and then at the University of Alaska's branch in Nome, Alaska.
Wow, okay. That must have been interesting.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And then you retired?
Uh, kind of. I'm not teaching. I'm not teaching, but I'm researching and trying to finish up a couple books.
Oh, okay. So have you written other books?
Yes, I wrote
Okay.
a history of aviation that won a number of awards, national awards, and was used by the Air Force Academy as a textbook.
Oh, wow. I didn't know this about you. I should have done a little more research. So what was the name of that book?
Aviation history.
Okay.
And it's still in print. First edition was 1999, and it's still in print with Jeppesen, the aviation publisher.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Well, tell me about you. You walked into a U.S. Forest Service office after the layoffs and volunteered to be a fire lookout. Tell me what prompted that.
I was frustrated. I was writing letters to our congressional delegation and getting silly form responses, like 7 identical responses in one day, like
Oh,
maybe
wow.
reading what I was writing. I went to some rallies in support of our public lands and democracy, and those all felt good, being surrounded by like minded people, recognizing there's a lot of sanity in this world still, but it didn't seem to have any impact. So I wanted to do something tangible to show my support for our public lands. I grew up in the Northwest. Public lands have always been cherished. They were where we played as kids, went camping, went berry picking, picked mushrooms, peeled cascara bark. Public lands are a part of our identity and our heritage. So I wanted to do something that said I support our public lands. And I couldn't think of anything. So one day I was driving by a Forest Service office and I just turned around, went back, and walked in and said, "May I volunteer?"
Yeah.
And the receptionist gave me kind of a funny look, but took down my name and number. And a week or so later, I got a phone call. Would I clean cabins?
Mm.
Well, that hadn't been what I was thinking of, but I offered to volunteer, so I said yes. And they had me clean a backcountry cabin. Opened it up for the season, and Montana Conservation Corps young people were there. Forest Service staff was there with the chainsaw to take care of a downed tree and to operate the mower, and cleaned the cabin. And they told me, since you're a volunteer, why don't you just stay there a few days and enjoy it?
Oh, nice.
That was nice. So I was
Yeah.
out at the Dry Wolf cabin on Dry Wolf Creek,
Okay.
about 25 miles west of Stanford.
Oh, okay.
Wonderful. So I went back and they said, will you be a campground host? Okay. And so for a week, I was a campground host at Kings Hill Campground in the Little Belts also. And then they called me up and said, would you like to be a fire lookout? And I'm going, yes, yes. I had wanted to be a fire lookout in college, and I was told that they wouldn't accept an application from girls.
Oh, is that right? So
Uh,
what
a
year was that?
married women could accompany their spouses, but not girls.
Oh my gosh.
I
What
mean,
year would that have been?
that would have been in the early 70s.
Okay.
And it turns out I was young and naive, and I was, of course, a girl. So I was used to being told I couldn't do things because I was a girl, and I just accepted the answer. I
Mm.
didn't know that other national force around the region and the country were accepting females as fire lookouts. I just accepted that I couldn't do it and went on and did other things. And
Yeah.
so here I am, a 73-year-old woman, and I get to be a fire lookout in a tower on a mountain peak.
I
And
love it.
I loved it too. And,
So where was the tower?
I was on Porphyry Peak in the Little Belt Mountains, about 35 miles outside of White Sulphur Springs,
Okay.
and about 10 miles south of Nehart.
So I read your account that you sent to Dorothy where you did spot a fire. You want to talk
Oh,
about that?
yes, I passed my initiation by fire. I was, of course, nervous, but I
Yeah.
don't have the vision of a 20-year-old anymore. And I didn't go to the training because government had been disrupted, so they weren't hiring, they couldn't arrange volunteers because everything had been suspended.
Mm.
And so I didn't go through any official training. They just pointed me to a stack of manuals. And so my concern was, oh, I don't want to miss a fire. And so one Saturday evening after work, I was in the tower fixing dinner, and something caught my eye, and I watched it a little while. And I go, that's smoke.
Mm.
And while I was watching it, I had gone to the Osborne Firefinder, a 1934 instrument that's been in use on Porphyry Peak every year since 1937. And I took the Firefinder and I got the heading and the mileage to the smoke. It was coming over a ridge, so I couldn't
Mm.
actually see the fire on the ground. So then I went to a panoramic photo book of everything you could see from the fire tower. And I found the right page, and it had us a grid over the photograph of what you can see. And I found the grid markings for where I was seeing the smoke.
Mm.
And the radio dispatchers have the same book.
Okay.
And so I radioed in the heading, the distance, and the page and coordinates from the photo book.
Mm-hmm.
And the photo book lets the dispatcher know exactly what I can see. It's a
Okay.
photograph of what I could see. And that way they don't play 20 questions asking you things you can't see. They can
Right.
still ask follow-up questions, but it's based on what you can see.
Mm-hmm.
And I phoned it in, and then I listened on the radio. They immediately launched an observation plane out of Helena, and some rangers on the ground, possibly in their homes since it was a Saturday evening,
Mm.
headed their vehicles towards in the direction of the fire. The observation plane got there first and confirmed that it was a wildfire
Mm.
in dense forest with rough access. And the observation plane continued circling and guided the ground responders what gravel road to turn off of 89 on.
Mm.
US 89 goes north-south through the Little Belt Mountains and is the only paved road.
Okay.
And lots of gravel roads. There's a lot of all-terrain vehicle recreation up there, a lot of snow machine recreation in the winter, plus, of course, the Showdown Ski Resort and the cross-country ski trails. And so the plane guided them to turn off on 89, and then at each intersection in the woods, told them which way to go on the rough, rocky roads. And the ground responders had to stop and clear down trees because they got on abandoned logging roads.
Mm.
Within 2 hours, they were laying hose lines.
Wow. That's
Uh,
amazing.
just amazing. And at 9 o'clock the next morning, there's a helicopter out there from Helena dropping buckets of water on the fire.
Wow.
The helicopters, they arranged two. They couldn't get refuel at White Sulphur Springs Airport. There wasn't enough fuel there. So they had two helicopters working. So when one went back to Helena to refuel, the other one was dropping water.
Hmm.
Did that all day Sunday. They brought in a ground crew from Dillon so they could have 24-hour coverage on the fire.
Mm.
And they stayed on the fire for a week to make sure every hot spot was out.
No.
And they kept it to 6 acres.
Okay, so it was a pretty good sized fire then.
And what's amazing is the efficiency, and
Yeah.
everyone did their job. No one tried to do someone else's job. Everyone just fit their parts right in
Hmm.
and kept fire out of the news because
Yeah.
it's so efficient. And we did luck out that the wind didn't come up and spread the fire. There's nothing firefighters can do to combat wind.
Yeah.
Uh, but I was just for the whole week listening on the radio and watching out of my binoculars. And the first day, I could at times see flames coming higher than the ridge,
Mm.
but they weren't on the ridge I was seeing. They were on the
Okay.
next ridge that was blocked by the ridge I could see.
Oh, okay. So they were pretty high.
They were high,
Yeah.
and uh, but to go into dense forest that's chronically dry, it's east of the Continental Divide in the rain shadow of the Rocky Mountains. To go in and keep it under keep it at 6 acres, I was just awestruck at
Yeah.
the quality and professionalism of the response.
Right. So was the ground crew, were all these people that were involved in fighting it, were they all Forest Service employees?
Many of them were summer Forest Service people.
Okay.
Some based at Belt, some in from Dillon, some from White Sulphur Springs. And the interesting thing is, all summer, it was a relatively quiet fire year in the Little Belts, but all summer they were sending parts of their crew out to Nevada or Idaho to fight fires.
Oh,
So the crews are based in different places, and depending upon where the fires are, the crews move.
mm-hmm.
But they don't take entire crews leaving an area unprotected. They
Sure.
always have some responders, and then they have some that go out to wherever there's an active fire.
Yeah,
So
that makes
I
sense.
was learning all of this, and I, of course, had to learn the geography of the firefinder has a visual area map covering a radius of 20 miles around me. But in clear weather, one time for like 10 minutes, it was so crisp and clear in the morning. I could not only see the crazy mountains, I could see the Absarokas behind them
Mm,
over 100 miles away.
wow. That's
Uh,
amazing. That one reason to love Montana, right?
Up there,
Yeah.
well, first of all, I'm totally in a cabin that's 55 steps off the ground with
Wow.
27 picture windows around me.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
So I just had this wonderful view
Yeah.
of everything. And of course, I had to continually be doing 360-degree scans of the landscape for
Mm.
fire, particularly after every lightning storm
Mm.
or thunderstorm. They're the same thing. You can't have thunder without lightning because lightning sparks the noise.
Right.
But you can have lightning storms where you don't hear the thunder because the sound of the thunder, I learned traditionally you can only hear it for about 10 miles.
Okay.
In the right weather conditions, atmospheric conditions, you might hear it up to 25 miles.
Hmm.
But another thing this summer was fascinating. The internet was all abuzz for a while. A new world record in the longest recorded, documented lightning bolt.
Oh,
515 miles in 7 seconds.
wow. So where was that?
That was over Texas and
Okay.
parts of two other states. And they
Okay.
had to use multiple satellites and put the camera images all together and stuff to track this whole bolt.
Wow. That's
Uh,
amazing.
but what it means is when you hear thunder, you're in strike range.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're hearing it in a 10-mile range that we can easily pick up or in the right atmospheric conditions, a 25-mile range,
Sure.
you're within strike range if you can hear
Mm.
thunder.
Mm.
You need to
Yeah.
get out of water, take your hand off a metal, seek shelter. And I hadn't realized that. I
Hmm.
grew up on the coast of Washington where thunder and lightning were things we could see inland over the mountains, but they didn't
Right.
happen on the coast.
Yeah. Where did
And
you live?
I lived in Ocean Park, Washington,
Oh,
on
okay.
the Long Beach or North Beach Peninsula at the mouth of the Columbia River.
Okay.
Waco was the high school. And we'd take the ferry across the Columbia to Astoria to the
Mm.
nearest dentist.
Oh, yeah.
That meant a whole day off of school to go to the dentist.
So that was a big deal.
Yeah, yes, we like dental appointments.
So
Needless to say,
yeah,
we didn't have many dental appointments.
right. That's funny. So were your parents pretty conscious of all this? It sounds like you did a lot of outdoor activities as a youngster. So was that kind of part of your family lineage, just learning to appreciate what the outdoors has to offer?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
My father came from Finland in
Oh,
41, and my mother had been sent to Finland for 5 years of schooling, returning for her senior year on Long Island. And so they both were steeped in that Finnish tradition of outdoors,
mm,
being healthy. And my stepfather was a Finnish descended logger,
mm,
and so being outdoors was something we were always conscious of. And
mm,
growing up in a household with a logger, we also knew the damage
mm.
that logging was doing, but the loggers needed to support their families.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, the history of whether to clear cut or, targeted
Thinning. Yeah,
cutting is pretty fascinating.
yeah,
Um,
and they were doing all clear cutting where I grew up, and
were they?
the loggers themselves swore about the damage it was doing.
Mm.
And of course, it damaged the fisheries, which was the other major industry where I grew up.
Oh, yeah. So tell me, if you hadn't been there for this fire, do you think that somebody else would have been in that tower?
I'm inclined to think everyone was really nice to me and no one treated me like an old lady. But the only qualifications they asked me before they offered me the tower was, did stairs bother me?
Mm.
And so I have a feeling that because of the suspension of funds and the
It's 11
layoffs
o'clock.
and the inability to even arrange for a volunteer, I think it might have been empty.
Yeah.
I didn't question. I was there to help,
Yeah.
not to do policy or politics or anything. I just wanted to do something to help.
Right.
And when you're scanning the landscape, even in quiet times, a minimum of once an hour. And if there's any weather activity or a lot of campers activity or a lot of ATVs on the gravel roads throwing up dust that could be smoke,
Mm-hmm.
gotta watch it and see. I was scanning more often, so I was busy all day.
Yeah.
And the tower has a access road. I had to smile. It's a rough access road. They just plowed the topsoil, and there's not much soil at all in the Little Belt Mountains. It's rock. And so it's a pretty rocky access road. It goes like 800 feet rise in a mile and a half. And there was one woman walked up the 55 steps to the cabin, and I was already used to some people having trouble with heights. And she said, "Oh no, it's not the heights, it's that road. That's the scariest road I've ever been on." And it turned out she was from Iowa.
Oh. Yeah, she's not used to mountain roads.
Yeah, it was a rough mountain road, but by Montana standards, it was simply an ordinary rough mountain road. But for someone from Iowa, going up a windy 800 feet in just a mile and a half, one lane, two-way traffic on one lane, but there really wasn't traffic, so that's mute. But to see her scariest road she'd ever seen.
Yeah, yeah. So what kind of vehicle do you have?
I have a 97 Dodge camper van.
Oh, okay.
And it's pretty much been in the shop after a summer of going up and down.
Is that right? Yeah.
I got a new fuel pump and regulator and sensors, and now it looks like something's leaking on the transmission. And so the rattling probably wasn't the best thing for an old camper van.
Yeah, right.
Most of the visitors came up on all-terrain vehicles.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, what was the morale like in the crew? They're with all the layoffs and everything. I'm just imagining that people are frustrated as you were. Did you get a sense of that?
I got a sense of it. Everyone followed government guidelines. They don't comment on politics or policy. And everyone was friendly, but I got a sense that there were a lot of walking trauma victims.
Yeah.
Not knowing what's going on, not knowing if they'll have a job, if they're going to be transferred, if the force is even going to survive.
Yeah.
They've dedicated their whole lives. They went to college, learned about conservation and the caring stewardship of the land and how to accommodate people and wildlife in the same spaces. There's a natural fire regime that has to be interrupted to protect the people.
Yeah.
And they've spent their whole careers trying to work all of this out for the best advantage of the plants, of the wildlife, of the people, and to have it all threatened. Again, no one commented.
Yeah.
But you still had the sense. I learned quickly to phrase questions carefully,
Yeah.
so as not to make people uncomfortable.
Right. You can just imagine, though, that it's such a gut punch. Really, I don't think a lot of people realize how many of these Forest Service people, like you say, have dedicated their lives to this. They're not just people who, couldn't find a job, so they ended up in the Forest Service. These are people that are passionate about this work. So for them to
Yeah,
lose their jobs,
and they went to college and
yeah,
studied to do this, and they've got experience, and they've got their homes and family, they're parts of the community,
yeah,
uh, and they know the entire communities are threatened if the
right,
public lands are under threats. I mean, we talk about amenity communities where the tourists come in because of the natural resources that are on public lands. But there's people, the farmers, the ranchers, the shopkeepers, the restaurant waitresses and waiters, all of these people, their whole water supply comes from the watersheds out
mm,
of the public lands. And in fact, when Roosevelt declared the Little Belts a national forest reserve in 1902, that prompts the U.S. Geological Survey to go in and classify the land so they
mm,
know what they're managing.
mm,
And in 1904, the USGS issues its report on the forests of the Little Belt Mountains. And they pointed out that the trees there, being slow growing in a dry environment with little topsoil, were only good for pulp. They were
oh,
waste, from a logging point of view, they were waste trees.
okay,
That the chief value of the forest was protecting the watershed.
mm,
And of course, it's not just the communities like Neihart, Monarch, Forest Green in the mountains that depend upon the mountain waters. It's White Sulphur Spring, Belt, Stanford, the communities in the valleys around
mm,
the mountain range that benefit from the watershed.
mm-hmm. So when you taught history, what was your specialty?
History of science and technology.
Okay. So did you study a lot of this stuff in when you were teaching or
I did not
mm-hmm.
study fire or fire ecology environments. I looked mainly at 19th century natural history.
Okay.
But that informed when I got up there, I started having questions. How burnable is this? What
Mm,
areas do I need to watch are more burnable than stuff? And so between my scans, I'd go online and look up articles about the fire ecology. And of course, there's bark beetle killed trees up there.
mm,
And I found out that ecologists think the bark beetle makes a healthier forest in the long run,
really?
in that each bark beetle species only attacks one species of tree.
Mm,
And so it'll go in and wipe out one species of tree in an area. That opens up the canopy, letting biodiversity flourish on the forest floor.
wow.
And it provides dead trees for the insects, fungus, birds, and rodents. And as a birder, anything that helps insects live is good
Right.
because the bird crashing populations one of the biggest crashing populations are the insect-eating birds, the
Mm,
songbirds that eat insects. The feeder birds that eat seed at feeders are doing okay.
mm-hmm,
But the songbirds that eat insects, because of all the spraying, agricultural spraying and yard spraying and everything, they're suffering.
mm.
And so I got to looking at these dead trees in the forest as nurseries.
Huh. There's always something more going on underneath the surface than we think, right?
Yeah. And when I first went up there, I didn't know how to pronounce porphyry.
Mm,
I mean, it was a strange word, like it was Greek to me.
yeah.
Well, it turns out it is Greek.
Oh,
It,
yeah.
it comes from ancient Greece, from a purple dye that the ancient Greeks harvested from several species of sea snails. So
Okay.
this purple dye, porphyry, was rare, and it became the something associated only with the super rich, the imperial family
Oh, really?
of
Okay.
Rome and Byzantine made purple the royal color because only the super rich could get it.
Mm.
And it turns out that porphyry, it's a rock that cools. Magma, heated rock is coming up under the crust, and it cools under the crust, but
Okay.
it cooled at two speeds. So there's very fine grained base rock, and then there's big crystals of quartz and feldspar in it. But it turns out that in Egypt, there's one mountain range where porphyry rock isn't gray or black or green tint like elsewhere in the world, but is purple.
Hmm.
And so the Roman emperors used it for their statues, their columns, their thrones. Nero was the first emperor to be interned in a purple porphyry tomb.
Wow.
Caesar had a purple porphyry bathtub.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Uh, Napoleon wanted to be buried in a purple porphyry tomb because of his imperial ambitions. But of course, his career ended on a less imperial note.
Right. So that didn't
And
work out.
that didn't work out. And so, between my scans, I was just looking up this trivia, which all these questions that came to mind: what's porphyry and
Hmm.
what's the fire history of this area? And for example, the lower grasslands might burn every 15 years in the little belts, but some of the higher locations, particularly if they're in a wet gulch, might burn only every 400 years.
Mm. Hmm.
And so I was looking all of this up, and then everything started, fitting together.
Right.
My perception of where I was became very comfortable.
Right. Well, I'm impressed with how much research you did for a volunteer job. So are you done? Did you finish with
I'm,
this?
I'm done for this season. I have put together a talk I want to give in White Sulphur
Oh.
Springs and Nehart because the people were so nice to me on my one day off when I went into town to take a shower. There's no water at the tower,
Mm.
and to do get groceries and go to the laundromat.
Mm.
That I want to go give a slideshow for them before the start of the next fire season, so that the local people know. I can announce the hours and stuff of the tower for the next year, so
Yeah.
they'll know when they can go up and visit.
Yeah. That's great. Well, that's I just think it's fabulous what you've done, and it's the my favorite part about it is that you enjoyed it so much and you were able to cite this fire. That's amazing.
Yes, yes. There were a couple small fires
Mm.
that were not visible from the tower.
Okay.
When I heard reports of them, I put the binoculars on them, and they were always over a ridge behind a mountain or something, and the smoke never ever rose above the ridge.
Okay.
And so I achieved the one thing that was my measure of whether or not I was doing my job, is I didn't miss a smoke.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
And my confidence level went way up when I did report.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I didn't report any false smokes. For example, one day there was, wow, that is a smoke. But it was from an area of the forest where I knew people remote camped. And so I watched it, and I couldn't see the fire on the ground because they were camping in the trees, but I could see a vehicle, and they weren't moving the vehicle. And I just waited a few minutes, and then the smoke started settling, and I properly concluded that they were smothering out a campfire.
Okay.
And I didn't report that and trigger everyone else.
Yeah. Right.
And that was my other thing. I didn't want to report a false smoke.
Yeah.
Because that does trigger a whole big response.
Sure.
So it's a balancing act. You want to report smoke promptly.
Right.
But you want to make sure it's a reportable smoke before you do.
Exactly.
And so it was a challenging summer. I had all of this to learn.
Yeah.
And I even learned how to calibrate and clean the firefinder instrument, and I was kept busy. And I did have visitors to the tower, so there was no chance to get lonely. It was just a marvelous experience, and I was so busy in such a healthy place, fresh air and everything. With wonderful views. I mean, I can't imagine what it would cost to rent a cabin for the summer with 360-degree views all around for up to 100 miles.
Yeah.
I mean, it was wonderful. And all that stress I was feeling about the negative activities in the world today.
Yeah.
I didn't have time for any of that. So I gave, but I also got back in ways I never imagined.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Anne, for taking the time to talk to me. I appreciate it.
Pleasure to finally meet you. I'm in semi-person.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks a lot. I want to thank Anne Millbrooke for a fascinating conversation about her experience as a fire watch. And I want to thank you for listening in to this episode of The Song of Roland. I also want to thank my son Fletcher for his musical accompaniment. Please join me again next time for another episode of The Song of Roland.